To plan our inventory, we will be looking at the stock to sales relationship for last year and holding on to that same stock to sales relationship for our plan. So first off, let's calculate our last year stock to sales relationship. It's simply our on hand divided by our last year's sales, and we get a stock to sales relationship for February of 2.1. This means the amount of inventory that we had starting the month on hand for February is 2.1 times the amount of sales that we generated. So let's go ahead and look at the stock to sales for the remaining months. So we can see March stock to sales was 2.4. So our March beginning of the month on hand inventory was 2.4 times the amount of sales that we generated. So this is how we simply read our stock to sales, and we will also apply the same metrics to the planned sales for planned inventory and sales for this year. So let's go ahead and take the last year stock to sales and apply them for this year. Now that our last year stock to sales are also reflected in our plan, since we are holding to last year, we will take our current planned sales times our planned stock to sales to get the total on hand. So for February, if we have sales that are $283,800 and we want to hold on to the stock to sales ratio of 2.1, then we need to take the $283,800 times our 2.1 stock to sales to get our February BOM of $601,000. So February, when we start the month of February, we should have $601,000 worth of merchandise sitting on hand in our stores. Let's go ahead and apply that same relationship to the remaining months. Now that we've applied that relationship, we can also look at the totals, and let's format this as well. If we would actually like to see the last year's stock to sales for our totals, what we simply do is we take our average of the amount of inventory that we have on hand and divide it by the average of our total sales that we have generated. So that will show that we had an average stock to sales of a 2.2. Since we are applying the same stock to sales last year to this year's plan, our this year plan should also be 2.2. Okay, so moving on. Now that we have our inventory planned and our sales planned, we now need to plan our markdowns as well. So our markdowns, we simply look at the percent rate. So we take our markdown dollars into our sales, and we will get a markdown rate for February of 8.3%. So we're taking our last year markdown dollars, divide it into our total sales that we generated, and that will tell us our markdown rate. So let's go ahead and also format this to see what our markdown rate should be for each month. Now, since we want to hold on to our last year markdown rate, we will go ahead and copy over what we had last year and copy it into our plan for this year. So now we will need to take our current planned sales, multiply it by our markdown rate in order to get our total markdown dollars. Once again, let's go ahead and bold our dollar information, and we will leave our percents unbolded. Now we need to determine our end of the month information. Since we already know exactly where we want to start the next month, remember we used our stock to sales to determine this, we already know exactly where we want to start March because we used the stock to sales off of our sales. So since for March we used a 2.4 stock to sales, that determined that our inventory should be at $709,200. Wherever we end the month of February is exactly where we begin the month of March. So whatever we ended one month is exactly where we start for the next month. So since we know in March we are already planning to start at $709,200, that's exactly where we need to be ending the month of February. So I will go ahead and take our March planned BOM and apply it to my February EOM. Now I will apply the same relationship and drag it all the way across. Now for the month of July, we don't have our planned August sales as we've only planned through July. So in order to do that final month where we would like to end, what we can do is we see the $535,700 for the EOM compared to the July BOM of the $584,100 is equivalent to about 91.7% of our July BOM. So our EOM for July, the end of the month where we ended July, was about 91.7% of where we started July. So we're going to apply that same relationship once again to our planned July EOM for this year. So we're going to hold on to that 91.7% relationship. So I'm going to take my BOM and I'm going to multiply it by my 91.7% relationship for July. So that's exactly where we should be ending the month of July. Now we need to figure out our receipt plan. In order to determine our receipt plan, what we simply have to do is we take the BOM for the next month, or also known as our planned EOM, plus our markdown dollars, plus our sales, minus our February BOM. So we take our EOM plus our markdown dollars plus our sales minus the BOM for the month. And that will get us a receipt plan of $415,400. So once again, if we are starting the month of February at $601,000 and I have a sales plan of $283,800, and I also take markdowns that are worth $23,500 to get me to my EOM of, or my March BOM of $709,000, I need to bring in $415,000 in receipts. If I bring in more receipts than this, my EOM will go up. If I bring in less receipts than this, my EOM will go down. So let's go ahead and apply that same relationship to the remaining months. I'm going to clear out this. So now I can see that my total receipt plan for the 6-month period is about $1,878,900 for February through July. Let's also add up our EOM for the 6-month period as well, since we forgot to do that. So now currently here is my 6-month plan. Once again, let's go ahead and pull in that markdown rate for this year. We can see we're still at that 12.1% markdown rate. Our average stock, once again, let's take the average of our current planned inventory, and we are about $642,000 average on hand versus last year's $623,000. And we will figure out our turnover once again. We will take our sales, divide it into our stock, and we will also get the same 2.7 turnover rate that we have this year as well as what we had last year. Remember, everything that we held, all of the relationships we held, so our markdown rates, our stock to sales ratios, as well as our percent to total sales. So we held all of these different factors and applied it to our new sales plan to determine exactly where we need to be. So that is currently how we do our 6-month plan.